Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields dazzled at his pro day yesterday, throwing dimes, running a casual 4.44 40-yard dash. And yet, whether it's a specific fit-based argument or not, the current chatter around the draft makes it seem like Fields will fall past at least pick 3, when a lot of us had him as the second best quarterback available. So some have wondered if he's being compared to other Ohio State quarterbacks. Fields was actually asked about this by the Washington Post. He said, "I think I'm different than those guys. I know my work ethic is unmatched, and just my dedication and passion to wanting to be great is just another level." He went on to say, "In terms of the past quarterbacks, I can't control that. The only similarity that me and those guys have is that we wore the same uniform. So if they want to say that, then that's on them. I'm going to focus on myself and focus on continuing to get better in every aspect of the game." If you watched him yesterday at his pro day, if you watched him during his season at Ohio State, especially this past season, you saw the leadership on display, and you saw a guy that really can command an offense and look out for his receivers throughout all of it, which are important things at the next level. So Dan Graziano joining us now. You've talked to some executives around the league. Is there a legit concern about Fields following in the footsteps of former Buckeyes quarterbacks?
No, I don't hear that, Laura. And in fact, I've asked that question directly. You know, does the idea that the Ohio State quarterbacks haven't really found success in the league work against him? And I've been told no. I mean, they're assessing. I've been told he's a different guy than some of those other guys. So he's being evaluated on his own merits, as he should be. I think when you hear concerns, a lot of times they're about inconsistencies with mechanics and maybe some issues he might have had when facing pressure. But you know, it's nitpick season, right? I mean, this guy's still going to almost certainly be a top 6 or 8 or certainly 10 pick. Just because he's not going to be 1 or 2, it doesn't look like, isn't necessarily a significant knock on him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is always the season. It seems we have to answer a ton of questions about certain players, about certain quarterbacks. And, you know, we had the questions about Lamar Jackson. They had the questions about Cam Newton. And now those questions seem to be about Justin Fields here. But when you look at his body of work, when you look at the totality of his film, he was highly successful. He was a winner in college. He was a guy who went out and fought when he was injured to beat Clemson in the semifinal. And so I think when you think about the measurables, you look at the physicality, you look at the physical tools, he obviously has everything there. I think at the top of this draft, when you look at those things, but also the productivity was there in college as well. And all he can do is continue to show well, is continue to ball. And if he does those things, then you get a great player. I want him to go to San Francisco. I believe if he does, he's an all-pro. I believe he's a guy that wins a Super Bowl. And much of this talk that we have right now about Justin Fields goes away.
If Justin Fields falls past 4th at the NFL draft, we as an NFL community have failed. All right, let me say that, okay? If he falls past 4, we have, as an NFL community, has failed. Number one, if you hear someone say that Justin Fields can't get through number 1 of his progression, stop listening to that person and walk away. Hopefully we have dispelled that. The second thing I've heard is he really struggled against Indiana and Northwestern. Did you guys watch the same games as I did? Because he had like 2 bad plays against Indy. Look at this ball to the sideline. That's a rip. Now, Indiana's defense is crazy exotic. Tons of unique pressures and coverages. So, yeah, there was an interception down the middle of the field late. Or there was a play where he scrambles around and the ball floats up and it becomes interception. That's fair. That's not a bad game. Those are 2 or 3 bad plays. Still threw for 300 yards. Northwestern against the number 1 defense in college football. There's an RPO. It's not there. Just tuck it and use the 4.4 speed. You guys tell me if you like that throw, because it's absolutely spectacular to the field. And then he could be a runner down. No, listen, 1-hand interception. That ball's 3 inches off from a touchdown. Great play by the corner. Holding on to it a little bit leads to a sack. So those are like, there's a difference between playing bad against certain teams and having 4 or 5 bad plays over the course of those 2 games. Now, I wanted to point out Indiana and Northwestern for everybody at home because you guys are probably hearing Indiana and Northwestern not thinking great college football. Indiana was the number 5 ranked college football defense in America last year. Northwestern was number 1, and he didn't have his number 1 receiver.
Yes, raise your hand. You can go.
So here's also why Dan has to point out Indiana and Northwestern, because when you look at his entire college career, those are the only 2 games you can point out.
Correct.
That's why Dan has to tell you what Indiana was. That's why Dan has to tell you what Northwestern was, because against everybody else, he was flat out balling.
Right.
And so when you think of Justin Fields and you look at the measurables, you look at the physical tools, but when you turn the film on, the dude flat out played. And you have to go back and watch it. You have to not nitpick just because you're falling in love with other people. Look at him for what he has done and for what he is.
Well, and remember, too, that he was without many of his weapons in a
Olave
couple of those games. Olave didn't play, his big-time wide receiver, because of COVID protocol. Let's give Dan Graziano the last word here.
Well, I just think what's interesting is where does he go if he isn't San Francisco's pick, right? Does Atlanta want to use the pick on him, or does Atlanta end up trading the pick to someone who's in love with him? You know, a Carolina, New England, a Denver. Those teams are still lurking and thinking about coming up for a quarterback after that run of the top three.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.